Good evening, everybody. How we doing? Spectre here. Glad you could tune in. Figured tonight, with everything going on in California, fire up the old stream and see if we can capture the results as they come in. Checking out from a number of sources net here. So I think tonight that's what we'll try and do. It looks like the polls will be closing here, probably within about the next 30 minutes or so in California, and we'll see the results net trickle in. Not sure exactly what to expect. Definitely been a lot of things in the news, obviously going against Larry Elder and all that razzmatazz here in the last several days. And of course, yesterday we find out a lot of folks now who had gone to vote, Republicans especially, find out that, oh, well, you've already voted. Interesting. No, they haven't, at least according to a number of folks. So tonight, I think what we'll do, like I said, I got a couple of things that we'll go through here, but before I do, I think what I'll probably do real quick is maybe take a quick spin around what is going on in the rest of the world before circling back to the rest of it here. So let me bring up what the old boards are talking about here this evening. So tonight, just before broadcast, it looks like a number of things. Mark Milley treason headed to Leavenworth. Yep, big news story of the day, if Washington Post is to be believed, with that story about a little hanky-panky with Milley circumventing Trump and calling up China, meeting with their military to discuss those sorts of things. And the other thing I'll highlight about that real quick is that if you remember right, a couple weeks ago on show, I talked a little bit about the disparity between the State Department and the White House. The narratives in that have diverged. I believe it was Sundance over at the Last Refuge, or Conservative Treehouse, if you will, that brought this up a couple weeks ago. That the narrative in that is definitely diverging. They've got competing narratives, and of course, if you think about what is going on with the State Department, who they ally with, the CNNs and Washington Post, etc., and think of who they put on air, right? CIA. So let's see what happens with that. It's a rather interesting dichotomy we've got going on. At least one of Milley's calls to China was intercepted by a partner nation targeting PRC leadership and resulted in a Five Eyes rocket of WTF to Meade and Bowling. Interesting. I haven't come across that article yet, but Milley will have to resign soon before it gets to the papers to try to keep the stink off Biden. Yeah, we'll see. These guys are running ripshod over the Constitution, complete lawlessness. They don't care at this point. A doctor admits once he intubates patients, 99% of those patients died. That's real nice, and I'm guessing that might be part of the protocols now we're seeing out of various hospitals, and that who get stuck on ventilators and things of the like, right? Good to note there, I suppose. And by the way, good to see you, Q the Hammer. Good evening, Dana M. King Turtle. Good to see you. When do we get to expect to see the results? So probably about 30 minutes or so here. We'll start to see things trickle in because I do believe the polls start closing here about 8 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. So we'll get to that here momentarily. A couple articles now. Picks are back. All right, Sky News, unity, not division. Yeah, interesting. I don't know if they're talking about Sky News down in Australia. Of course, if you've seen the news lately, there's a big stink between them and Facebook and big tech, etc., about them, going against the grain and obviously medical misinformation, right? Mayor Gavin Newsom this morning, profound lapse of judgment. Interesting. Yeah, maybe we'll get into that here a little bit tonight. Waiting to remember Newsom Guilfoyle, nuptials talk of the town. Interesting. Let's see. Prosecution witness in Netanyahu trial and his wife killed in Greek plane crash. Oh, yes. 7 out of 10. Remember those days. Old plane crashes. Of course, dead men tell no tales now, do they? The Pope's on dope, and it ain't no joke. All right. I don't know what that means per the folks on the board this evening, but must be something to it. Putin to self-isolate due to concerns of Kung flu amid inner circle. Great. Taste the paste. The Japanese Council for Public Health just approved the use of ivermectin. Huh. Yep, I guess they must think all their people must be all about the horses, I guess, huh? Yeah, you got the idiots over here running ripshot over that after old Joe Rogan and company and spun up a fake story out of Oklahoma, all that good stuff, ridiculousness. The investigation of the mysterious USPS truckloads of ballots continue. Yeah, I did see that article. I believe it was out of Gateway Pundit and picked up by a couple other sources here today. Nothing to see in Israel with COVID. Please move along. Yep, they're only 4 jabs in by now. Boost this, boost that. I don't know. Maybe they'll get up to 5 and 6, and eventually, these people just being treated like pincushions will just start keeling over. Maybe that's their intent. I don't know. Fake terriers, war crimes, Phoenix program. Not sure what all that is about, but Chinese warships approach Alaska as U.S. Navy increases presence in the South China Sea. And yes, we saw that. What did they say? I think they're about 45 miles or nautical miles or something like that off the Aleutian Islands, something like that. So, what's to be expected, I guess, when you do this tit for tat business. We got all sorts of ships over in the South China Sea and that taunting, and so I suppose they feel emboldened to do the same. Let's see, antibodies. Doctors refuse to carry out a COVID antibody test for this one simple reason. That might be worth going back to the boards to find out about that one. Czech President Milos Zeman hospitalized, condition unknown. Not sure what's going on there. Interesting. UK's Prince Andrew ignores pre-trial hearing in U.S. sex abuse case. And yes, here in the last several days we saw that he was indeed served. Not him exactly, but I do believe that his people received papers for the trial and that is being brought against him, the suit. And of course, all that stemming from Epstein related stuff. Record backups 56 cargo ships are stuck waiting off the California coast. Oh, so this is updated since I last talked about this. It had been sitting at 45, so we've picked up an extra 11. And I'll have to see if Zero Hedge picks up the story. Maybe I'll cover that tomorrow. But obviously, at the time that I read that, ships and that are getting in queue to hit ports, on average taking about 7-8 days before they actually make it in. And at the time they were talking about like 350 some thousand 20-foot TEUs, and that's all the containers and that full of products that can't be unloaded and distributed either by truck or rail or what have you around the country. So it looks like the conditions seem to be worsening in regards to supply chains. Let's see, video. Ted Cruz explodes at Blinken over Afghanistan debacle. Yeah, more shenanigans there. Are we responsible to arrest Fauci yet? Well, I would hope so. He's a war criminal. He's definitely not to the good, let's put it that way. Casual anti-Semitism confirmed. Yeah, what else is new? Crying about something in before shitstorm. All right. Rand Paul questioning Anthony Blinken. Yep, more of the same. Horowitz, Australia admits it is banning ivermectin for COVID because it interferes with universal vaccine agenda. So it seems we got a little bit of a dichotomy on the stories here today. On one hand, you got old Putin and company saying, yep, let's give it a whirl. We definitely know that India for sure has been using that very effectively, I might add. And in the meantime, Australia, which is the protocol, if you will, for full-blown totalitarianism, no, we can't be having that now, can we? Yeah, because, GlaxoSmithKline, Pfizer, AstraZeneca, and the like, Moderna, BioNTech, and those guys, well, they just might not be able to keep the lights on if we don't keep the dollars flowing to them. Now, will they? What's the deal with all this symbolism? Interesting. They must got some stuff going on there. And new FDA records show purchases of fetal organs, heads, and tissue for humanized mice project. And I think we had already been in, enlightened, I suppose, to Fauci's little pet projects, as it were, in that regard. So a little bit of a round tripper as to what the folks on the boards are talking about here today. Now, quick over to what is going on in California. This updated earlier out of San Francisco Chronicle says California's recall election. Elder removes voting fraud claim from website. And that was a story earlier in the day, claim of election fraud. And by the way, I guess before I get into this, If by chance you guys come across anything out on Twitter or any the other social media platforms, Telegram or or any of the outlets net, and you want to throw the links in chat, you're welcome to do so. I'll probably put those up as we sit and wait for some of the results. Um, See if I can get those up. And it looks like, by the way, for whatever reason, YouTube does not allow the links to be dropped. So if you're on any of the other platforms tonight, you can go ahead and drop those in those respective chats, and I'll pick them up. For those paying attention, I'm over on DLive tonight. We're over on Trovo. We are over on Vaughn. We're over on the um, Tiger Network and YouTube as well. So that's where we're at tonight. But again, if you want to drop links in that, get over to one of the other platforms and it should pick up fine. But yeah, San Francisco Chronicle says this tonight. It says Election Day has finally arrived in California, the final act in a rare democratic exercise where voters are being asked whether to remove Governor Gavin Newsom before his term expires. The Chronicle's live interactive map will report official figures from the Secretary of State with constant updates. Here's everything you need to know, from how and where to vote to who's running to how to fill out the ballot. Yeah, so if they're just now figuring this out, I don't know what sort of rock they've been under, but nonetheless. Latest updates: Elder removes fraud claim from website. Larry Elder's campaign has apparently erased a web page where he alleged widespread fraud in the recall election. And on Monday, before polls had even opened on Election Day, a website funded by Elder's campaign published an unsubstantiated allegation that statistical analyses used to detect fraud in elections held in third world nations, such as Russia, Venezuela, and Iran, have detected fraud in California, resulting in Governor Gavin Newsom being reinstated as governor. That page was erased Tuesday afternoon and replaced with a form for voters to report alleged fraud. Elder has increasingly, in recent days, hinted he might not accept the outcome of the election. Well, gee, I don't know why in the world that would be, especially after reports yesterday of what we found. And then, of course, never mind the fact that, hey, all these mail in ballots, which are prone for fraud. I mean, what the heck? If you want to go ahead and mail in your vote, I guess you can just print it off your printer at home and all is well. No biggie. And never mind the holes in the envelopes where potentially, you got some guys on the inside at the old post office and that peeking through the little hole to see, and oh, poop, we'll just file 13, that puppy, won't we? Never seen that before. In any case, ballots arriving non-stop outside of San Francisco City Hall. With Election Day winding down, a steady stream of voters trickled through the basement of City Hall as the after-work crowd dropped off last-minute ballots. One poll worker manning a drop-off outside the building said voters had been arriving all day and estimated there were at least 300 ballots dropped in the big red box. It's been non-stop, he said. As far as a healthy trickle of voters in San Francisco's Sunset District, poll workers at a firehouse on 16th Avenue in San Francisco said despite the lull, a healthy trickle of voters dropped off their ballots throughout the day. Nearby, inside a garage on 18th Avenue, a polling inspector said about 35 people dropped off ballots and another 20 used the voting machine. The inspector and two poll workers said they were waiting to see if an influx of people would come just before 8 p.m. If somebody refuses to wear a mask, we will still allow them to vote. Interesting. Yeah, we'll have to keep tabs on that, whether or not people were denied their ability to vote because of either COVID or not masking or jabbing or some ridiculousness in that regard. I would just about bet we'll probably see some folks probably comment on that. The inspector said, adding that voting rights are paramount and workers will ensure the person remains 6 feet away from everyone else. Is that still a thing? The whole 6 feet distance? Hasn't that been largely debunked yet? Thought it had. Another San Francisco resident calls the recall ridiculous. The 51-year-old San Francisco woman who declined to give her name voted against the effort to oust Governor Newsom. I feel like my tax dollars have been absolutely wasted by this, and I'm not happy about it. She said, "This money could have been spent on other things, especially during a pandemic. This is ridiculous." Interesting. Kamala Harris urges voters votes in finish line plea. Oh, yeah, here we go. The Newsom campaign released a video from Vice President Kamala Harris 3 hours before polls closed, urging voters to cast ballots against the recall. "Today's the day we make sure that our state keeps moving forward," she said. "Don't wait. Please get out there. Vote no on the recall and let's win this, California." Yeah. I'm not necessarily sure that having Kamala stumping is probably the best thing, right? YouTube won't let you like it? Why am I not surprised, K2? Sorry, man. I'm surprised they let me to broadcast it, frankly. But, hey, it is what it is. Like I said, I'm over on DLive tonight. I'm over on Twitch. I'm over on all the other platforms here tonight. So, if somebody's got the old... I'll tell you what. I'll go ahead and drop the link out there for the old link tree, just in case people get slighted on one platform. You can always go to the other. So there you go. What does Kamala have to say? Yeah, I guess we'll listen to Cackly Witch here for a second.
It's election day in California. Today is the day we make sure that our state keeps moving forward. With my friend Governor Gavin Newsom in Sacramento, our schools and businesses have reopened and our economy is back on track. But we still have more work to do. So make sure you get out and support Governor Newsom today.
Yeah, that's about enough. I've heard enough lies out of just that first 20 seconds. Anyway, San Francisco votes against Newsom for birthday. Jennifer Mata, an artist, had plans to celebrate her 50th birthday with her husband, Kenneth Mata, in the Sunset District. But before the celebration could commence, she stopped at Jefferson Elementary School on Irving Street near 19th Avenue to cast her vote in favor of recalling Governor Newsom. "I didn't want to vote on my birthday, but I did," Mata said. "We never had crime like this before. We never had filth on the street the way we have it now. I don't believe the politicians currently in charge of the city or the state are doing a good job." Her husband, a 58-year-old artist, agreed. "I think he's a crook and a charlatan," Kenneth Mata said of Newsom. "He's a pretty boy phony. Elvis wants his haircut back." Outstanding. Neither would say who they voted for instead of Newsom. "Whoever wins, wins," Kenneth said. Jennifer adjusted the orange flower in her hair, and the two left for dinner. Aside from school pickup, the elementary school's polling place was mostly quiet. The Matas were the only two to cast their ballots in the span of 30 minutes late Tuesday afternoon. Another San Francisco voter decides to stick with Newsom. Sam Ekikson, a 28-year-old software engineer in San Francisco, said he voted against the recall because he liked how Newsom has handled COVID-19. Ekikson said what stood out for him was Newsom's daily video updates. "It helped makes me feel like he was being transparent and making an effort unlike other governors," Ekik said. What? I'm not exactly sure what news that dude is following, but, man, maybe he needs to crawl out from underneath a rock, but that's just my opinion. Who actually voted before Election Day? Well, about 8.7 million voters returned their ballots before September 14th out of a possible 22.3 million. Keep those numbers in mind, folks. 8.7 million returned, presumably by mail-in, yes, out of a possible 22.3 million. So let's say this thing gets down to the nitty-gritty here, and just like back in November, for whatever reason, what happens if we see more ballots dumped in, feed the machines, than what is stated here? Do you think that might be a good indicator? I don't know. I'm just speculating here. But anyway, 22.3, that's a number to remember, and a promising sign for Gavin Newsom. Most of those voters are Dems, according to figures from election data company Political Data Intelligence, which collects information from each California county. 52% of mail-in ballots returned before Election Day were from Democrats, 26% from Republicans, and 23% from independent voters. That breakdown is quite similar to the 2020 election, when Joe Biden trounced Donald Trump in California by 29 points. It's possible that Democratic voters won't support Newsom quite as they did Biden, though previous polls suggest his support within his party is strong, or that Republicans will vote in larger comparative numbers on Election Day. But this early data is enough to give Newsom hope. As your mail-in ballot uh, has been counted, has your mail-in ballot has been counted or not? That's poor wording. Somebody from the editing team at San Francisco Chronicle did a poor job on that. But anyway, maybe you signed up for California's Vote Tracker, where you receive alerts about where your ballot is in the process, and you've gotten a voicemail that says your ballot was received and counted. But wait, it wasn't really counted yet, was it? Doesn't ballot counting start on Election Day? The answer should be reassuring. Ballots can be processed and counted 29 days prior to the election, said Jenna Dresner, a spokesperson for California Secretary of State. So those ballots are in fact counted. However, no results can be reported until after polls close at 8 p.m. on Election Day. So apparently, a little consternation there. How is California's electorate split between Dems and Republicans? Well, the state now has over 22 million registered voters, an all time record, achieved ahead of the 2020 presidential election. That's more than the entire population of Florida. But those California voters are sharply divided from one county to another. Lassen County, the reddest in the state, is 55% Republican, while the bluest county is, you guessed it, San Francisco, with 63% registered Dems. On the other hand, Lassen has only 15,700 registered voters, while San Francisco has 513,200. For a better understanding of how California's electorate breaks down and how that might affect the outcome of today's recall election, check out these 5 fascinating maps developed by the Chronicle's data team. Yeah, maybe we'll circle back to that here in just a bit. East Bay pro recall voter. I feel like I'm living in communism. From wildfires to the state's homelessness crisis, Republican Jacqueline Burge Welker, 71, said she has a long list of reasons why she wanted Governor Gavin Newsom out of office while voting in person at the Danville Town Hall. But Newsom's handling of the pandemic seemed to strike the biggest chord for Burge Welker. Burge Welker, who voted for Larry Elder as a replacement candidate, said she and her daughter, based in Texas, have lived different places over the past year, or different lives over the past year, rather. They're free, Burge Welker said. Her children never missed a day of in-person learning. They've had sports. They don't have to wear a mask. They can go to a restaurant without being harassed. I feel like I'm living in communism, which we are. Several polling sites across the East Bay were noticeably empty Tuesday as an overwhelming majority of participating voters cast ballots by mail. At the Danville Town Hall, just over 100 people had voted in person Tuesday as of 1 p.m., according to poll workers. Flurry of votes cast at San Francisco City Hall, Newsom's former domain. It was a busy lunch hour at San Francisco City Hall as people slipped ballots into drop boxes and cast their votes the old-fashioned way, in the basement. The Department of Elections, which received 246,498 ballots by Monday, said they weren't going to provide an update on how many votes had been cast until Tuesday night. But if the drop boxes outside City Hall were any indication, they will have plenty of ballots to count by the end of the day. A poll worker stationed at one drop-off at the Polk Street entrance estimated he had about 400 ballots inside the big red box, as people arrived on foot, bike, and at least one person via self-driving car. Another box around the corner had about 400 ballots in it, too. Rumor has it that we can fit about 800 in here, the poll worker said. We might get there. Fifth and Mission podcast. Will Newsom survive the recall attempt? Here's what Gavin Newsom had to say about the recall and what voters can expect as election results roll in. And perhaps we'll skip that. It's like picking the best out of the worst. A larger number of voters turned up close to lunch hour at Lakeside Park Garden Center in Oakland to vote in person and drop off ballots for Tuesday's gubernatorial election. Among them was Angie Ditter, 39, a tech worker, who said it was imperative for her to vote. It's like picking the best out of the worst. Ditter, who voted no on the recall, said, I think Newsom did the best out of a bad situation. But even for things he didn't do quite right, it doesn't warrant a recall. Oakland resident Ebony Johnson, 41, echoed similar sentiments. I don't love Newsom, but we have corrupt systems in place and we need to fight, the social worker said. Still, she's fearful of a possibility of Republican rule in California. To be honest, I have no confidence in any of this. About 60 voters showed up to vote in person at Lakeside, and another 60 had dropped off ballots by noon Tuesday. Poll worker Julie Knoll said the numbers had been steady all morning, with more voters expected during lunch hour and after work. And almost half of ballots already returned. According to the data tracker Political Data, more than 9 million ballots in the recall have already been returned, more than 40% of the 22 million that were mailed out. Of the ballots returned, 51% have come from Dems, 23 from Independents, 26 from Republicans. Voters have until 8 p.m. to vote in person or can mail them their ballot as long as it's postmarked by Tuesday. Oh, so here we go with this business again, huh? So long as it's bookmarked, postmarked, rather, here sometime today. Well, what happens if the mail just happens to miss a pile? Do we count those a couple days later, 3 days later? Does this turn into a week-long event as opposed to a one-day knockdown drag-out? I don't know. We'll have to see. But I'll break from that there. And let me see if I can go back up and find the link here real quick. Live interactive map. What's this guy do? Okay, I think I've got that. So I suppose as the polls close here, this will be the place where they'll start updating this. Recall Gavin Newsom, obviously no versus yes is the first question posed. They do have the breakdown by county here, and it looks like maybe we'll be able to get some numbers out of that. Who should replace Newsom? Obviously, Larry Elder at the top of that as a Republican. You got Kevin Paffrath as a Dem. You got Kevin L. Falconer. You got John Cox and Kevin Kiley also on the list. And most popular candidate in each county. We'll give the breakdown down here as well. So we'll come back to that. In the meantime, switch over to this California recall election results 2021 live updates. Another avenue here. We'll see out of calmatters.org, see what sort of stuff they've got. Who is Cal Matters? Well, after petition drives, ads, debates, and millions of dollars, we'll know soon whether Gavin Newsom will be the second California governor removed from office by the voters. Polls statewide close at 8 p.m. and results will begin to be reported. Reminder, the recall ballot has the two questions. Question 1 asks, shall Gavin Newsom be recalled or removed from office of governor? A yes vote is against Newsom and to boot him from office. A no vote is for Newsom and to keep him as governor. Question 2 says candidates to succeed Gavin Newsom as governor, and if he is recalled, and if more than 50% of voters say yes on the first question, Newsom will be removed from office. Then, whoever has the most votes among the 45 active candidates listed on the second question and 7 write-in candidates, no matter how few and even if they don't win a majority, will become governor in late October for the rest of Newsom's term. But it could be a while before we know the outcome, and not because of any fraud. Due to the pandemic, all active registered voters received a ballot in the mail. To make it easier to vote, state lets Californians mail in a ballot postmarked as late as Election Day, in this case, today, September 14th, and have it counted so long as it arrives within 7 days. So I guess that's the answer to my question from earlier as to whether or not this thing is going to turn into a week-long fiasco, and it appears that is going to be the case. So we'll have to see how that fares and whether or not we'll actually indeed even get true results tonight. I suppose if they get us over the 50 mark, then we'll know. And if not, then I guess who knows? It may be a couple days, just exactly like what we saw pan out on November 3rd of last year. That says, let's see, it arrives in 7 days, and the results could change dramatically, and not because of any conspiracy. County election workers have been counting ballots returned early for weeks. As of Monday, 40% of all mailed ballots had come in, and they are trending heavily in favor of Dems, who account for more than half of ballots returned. Those results will be reported first. Well, yeah. Wasn't that the case back in November, too? That typically Dems tend to favor the mail in ballots, whereas Republicans, the working class, tend to do it either before or after work. And so obviously, we're not going to get anything definitive or anything in that regard measurable out of that. So we'll have to see. And it says, as in the pandemic election of 2020, more Republicans are expected to vote in person, and they're more likely to support the recall. So the results could shift that way as those ballots are counted. Of about 8.7 million ballots cast as of this morning, 4.5 million were from registered Dems, 2.2 million from Republicans, and a little less than 2 million from voters registered with no party preference or with minor parties, according to a tracker from Political Data Inc. And maybe it might be worth doing a dig on who Political Data Inc. is, who they're associated with behind the scenes, just for grins as well. Always good to know that information. While media organizations will call the race as soon as a result is clear, the Secretary of State has as many as 38 days after the election to certify the official results. Let's see. Anything else here? Not yet. So in the meantime, I think what I will do is I did see this come in just before broadcast here. It looks like California election results coming through by way of agenda-free TV here. So I'm going to let a little bit of this play through here while we wait, and perhaps we'll flash back to that other here in just a little bit.
More time. This is the big story right this second. I'm going to read this again from Ed O'Keefe, who is with CBS. At poll closing, CBS News can characterize the recall race as lean no, or to keep Gavin Newsom in office based on our exit polls. This is not a projection. Race characterizations may update as the night go on. So we'll have to see. Are there any vote totals in yet? Hold on. Let me get rid of this. Let's check the different websites. No results in on New York Times. How about Decision Desk HQ? No, I'm seeing no votes in. No votes here. None here. And then also remember, it's not just question one. Question one is, shall Gavin Newsom be recalled? Question two is, who shall succeed Gavin Newsom? I am not seeing any votes reported yet. Thank you, Sarah C., for your support. Sarah C. says people are still in line in Orange County. Our viewer Storybook Cosmetics says, just dropped off my ballot, line wrapped around the building in Moore Park. Never seen a line before. I'm extremely nervous. Thank you, Sarah C. and Storybook Cosmetics for your support. So again, let me show you something else. This is from elections analyst Nate Cohn, who says, expect Newsom to take an early lead as the disproportionately Democratic early mail votes will be the first counted. If the 2020 election is any indication, the no vote could start out at 5 points higher than the ultimate result. These exit votes, look at this. These exits show no up by about 18 points or so. If so, these early Newsom votes may be enough to yield an early call. Look at this. Exit polls. Where is the number? Where's total? Where's the total race? I don't even know. So again, Nate Cohn says the exit polls show no up by around 18 points or so. If so, these early Newsom votes may be enough to yield an early call. Okay, hang on a second. Kyle Kondik says exit polls are here. back of the envelope basically suggests no on the recall winning with something like 58 to 59% of the vote. So this is Kyle Kondik, who is an elections analyst. He says that the CNN exit polling numbers, I don't think it's just CNN. I think a bunch of networks have the same exit poll data, I think. But we have a couple analysts saying that they've looked at the exit poll data posted on CNN, and it suggests that no recall is around 58 or 59 to 40. But that could come down because the day of votes. Well, no, this is the exit polls. The exit polls should count both. The exit polls should count the day of votes and the mail-in votes. Oh, hold on a second. Are there votes in? Do we have votes in? Hold on. People are saying votes are in. Yes, breaking news, votes are in. We have now there's going to be initial votes coming in. These are going to be mail-in votes. All right. This is 3% in. Again, this is not a random sampling of the votes. So they might be coming from more Democratic-leaning counties, for example. Let me see here. Larry Elder. Yeah, these look like more Democratic-leaning counties because Kevin Paffrath has 20%. He was polling it lower than that. But hang on a second. What I want to see is what site has the most up-to-date numbers. This is 1% in on. How about this?
So it looks like real quick here, updating the San Francisco Chronicle, it looks like so far they've got about 10,000 votes and change in favor of recall versus no, 26,000. So it's a little better than a 2-to-1 advantage at the moment. But like he was just saying, it's probably looking at a lot of the mail-in ballots so far and not just the in-person stuff. So stand by.
So different sites have different vote totals. But again, these are coming from different locations. They're coming from different parts of the state. So you can't just extrapolate over the whole state. CNN seems to be the most up to date right now. Let me show you also some of the expert analysis. 7% in. 61 no, 38.9 yes. Hang on. Let me just see if any of the experts are posting any analysis of this. We'll go back to totals. Nate Cohn says our first result, no recall at 72% in Napa. Newsom won 65% of the vote in Napa in 2018 when he won 62% statewide. So this is a strong showing for him in the early going, even considering the early mail votes were expected to be strong for him. So Nate Cohn says the numbers in Napa are looking good for Newsom. All right, trying to get you analysis and also, Ryan Matsumoto, who's an election analyst, says CNN exit polls suggest Newsom is on track to win about 58 to 41, but take these with a grain of salt. Exit polls are not a substitute for actual results. We're not going to get all of the voting in tonight, but we are expecting, within the first 3 hours in 2020, about 2/3 of the vote reported. So we should be getting a lot of updates in the coming minutes because a lot of people voted by mail early, and those should be pretty fast. So in addition to looking at the different numbers coming in, I'm also going to be showing you, I want to look at what the analysts are going to be looking at numbers from particular locations. And they're going to be saying, how does this compare with how Newsom had to do Is Newsom doing better or worse than they needed to do? We have more votes came in. Still 61. But again, this is not a random sampling here. This is certain counties. Oh, and then look at down here. Here is Elder. Now, this is unsurprising. Larry Elder, as polls were suggesting Elder would do better among the candidates running to replace.
Yeah, I would expect that who should replace Newsom here. A lot of this is based on mail-in ballots net coming in so far, hence why we've seen Joel Ventresca, Patrick Kilpatrick, Jacqueline McGowan, Daniel Watts, all those guys net immediately leap out front. And of course, it'll take a while for the rest of the votes who are actually cast at polling stations to come in. So we'll watch this.
2018 CA governor election. The total number of voters in 2018 was about 12 million people, it looks like. About 12.5 million people voted. So, just to give you an idea, right now the total number of votes in is 2.2 million. So that makes sense. That says estimated 17% in. About 1/6 of the total votes have been reported already. So again, about 12.5 million people voted total in the governor's race in 2018. And we right now have about, over 2 million votes in. So about 1/6 of the total that was voted in 2018 have voted now. Now, I don't know that the same amount of people are going to vote in 2000 now that have voted in 2018, but it would seem like a, rough estimate. Okay, let me just really quick see if we have any more analysis from the analysts on this. Okay. Nate Cohn says, we have results from 4 counties now, and so far Newsom is running 5 points ahead of his 2018 showing. If that holds statewide, it would give him around 67% of this first wave of ballots. And for what it's worth, Biden ran about 5 points ahead of his final result in the 2020 early vote. So everything we're seeing right now is suggesting a significant win for the no recall. We keep hearing different analysts, but everything we're seeing is pointing initially to like a 60-40 no recall vote. That's just these initial numbers. See, CBS Politics says at poll closing, CBS News estimates the California recall race as lean no to not recall Gavin Newsom based on our exit polls. G. Elliott Morris, who's an analyst with The Economist, says, and there it is, folks. Early vote-by-mail results in California's recall election are way ahead of tied race benchmarks and signal an imminent, that means soon, victory for Governor Newsom, possibly by high double digits. I'm going to bed early tonight. That's from G. Elliott Morris. So a lot of people, analysts talking about high double digits. Breaking news, Dave Wasserman has called it. Dave Wasserman, election analyst, has already called it. I've seen enough. The vote to recall California Governor Gavin Newsom fails. So he is a widely respected elections analyst. So he has called the race. Now,
And I would say that is probably a little bit premature because, again, the thing with that is that this is purely based on mail-in ballots. You cannot call a frickin' race when the ballots are not the polls net literally just closed now, what, 15 minutes ago? So what does that mean? They probably have already counted maybe 1% in each of the various precincts. By the time everything's tallied up by county, sent back over to the Secretary of State, again, it's a little bit premature. We saw Fox News do the same doggone thing on the night of election back in November, and they got burned for it. So I would probably not let Dave Wasserman hold too much water in that regard.
But he is, no vote is a little confusing, so I'm saying Newsom leading. So again, Dave Wasserman has called it. He says he's headed to bed. Dave Wasserman is headed to bed. 538 says we have some results from San Diego County.
Looks like per San Francisco Chronicle here, the numbers are tallying in here. It's still about a little over a 2-to-1 advantage here. No, 72% versus 27%. But again, I would caution idiots like the Wasserman or whatever the heck his name is for throwing that out there. That's absolutely ridiculous. It's all mail-in ballot counts and that were already ready to go and counted ahead of time.
To skew for Newsom, but we now have 43% of the vote in and 70% are no recall. Maybe I'll change the headline to say no recall. Yeah, as Peachy Keen, our viewer, says, no is winning big at the moment. And this is not a small number of votes. I mean, in 2018, the total number of votes was about 12.5 million people. So this is, about, 43%, it looks like. It's about 2/5 of the number of people who voted in the 2018 governor election. So I would not be surprised to see networks call this soon for Newsom. It's just the numbers are so big for against the recall. Hey, thank you, Mark Hill, for your support. I really appreciate it. Mark Hill, thank you.
So Deborah W. asks, how do I feel about this election? Well, I don't have a very good feeling about it, frankly, just for the simple fact that the machines are still in place. Nothing has really changed. We don't have any sort of election integrity stuff passed since November. So, bottom line, I don't think we're going to see the very best results out of this unless there's a landslide of folks. This being a recall and not a presidential election with huge turnouts, unless there's major turnouts that could sway this, I don't put a lot of confidence in it, unfortunately. Let's take a gander back over at San Francisco Chronicle here. Yeah, still sitting about 2.9 million no versus 1.14 to the yes. Yeah, they're not updating results by county yet, so that tells me the machines net are just getting started tallying. So again, this is probably all front-loaded with purely mail-in stuff. Although we do see down here that Jeremy Marciniak is now ahead. Larry Elder now picking up a little bit there, but we'll have to see.
more, look, it got a little bit closer. Got a little bit closer there with the latest batch of new votes. About 49% estimated in. It's still 66 to 33 against recall. Hey, thanks so much to Shaft. Shaft says, I've seen enough. Hey, thank you, Shaft, for your support. I really appreciate it. Thank you also, Westhawk, for your support. Thank you, Westhawk, and John Person, who says still in traffic to vote in the 2020 election. Thank you, John Person, for your support. Our viewer History Underfoot thinks this is a stunning defeat of the recall. Now, just to be clear, if you look at the polling, the polling ended at the estimate of 538 for the polling at the end of the polling was 57 to 41. So in the more recent polls had these kind of numbers, keep plus 14, keep plus 11, keep plus 19. So, if it was 60-40, that's not that far off from the polls. That would not really be a surprise because the polling was suggesting that. Back in August, the polling was around even in early August, but it really separated out. But the question was going to be, is the polling accurate? But it looks like, if anything, right now, it looks like Newsom may even outdo the polling, but we'll see. But hey, thank you, Dorkmo, for your support. I appreciate it. Dorkmo, thank you. Yeah, I mean, this would not be a surprise. California is a very Democratic state. Joe Biden won California by almost 30%. So it would not be, this kind of result would not be a surprise if it ends up being something like, this or 60-40. That's just reflection of how the state normally votes these days. It's up to 70% now. But anyways, let me check some other analysts and see what they're saying. But this would not be seen as a surprising result if this kind of number hold. Sumya, who is with the LA Times, says mail-in voting is really changing the speed of the election night results. It hasn't even been 30 minutes, and we already have 44% of the vote in. She also says Los Angeles County, which I assume is more Democratic than the average. I assume it's very Democratic in Los Angeles County. 76% currently voted to oppose the recall and 24% supportive based on close to 2 million votes. That's from Sumya. Uh, 538 says preliminary exit polls indicate a big divide between the inland and coastal.
That's pretty crazy. Highlighting the things here, it says 72% say no out of 4 million and change votes cast on the question so far. 32.2% of turnout in 2018. Notice they didn't provide the figures from 2020. Obviously, this being a special election, they are probably not going to have quite the turnout levels they did back in November, but nonetheless. But if a majority say yes, who should replace him? 37.7% Larry Elder, but 99.9% left this question blank. But that's only 3,500 votes, so nonetheless, let's take a look back over at San Francisco Chronicle. Yeah, still a little better than a 2-to-1 margin here. 69.9% out of 3.7 million. 1.6 million. Let's see, that's what, 5.3 million? What did we say out of the 22 million before? Where'd that figure go? I said to hold that number. 22.3 is the top end. There it is. About 8.7 million voters returned their ballots before out of 22.3. So out of all the ballots cast so far, have we hit 8 million? Nope, not even close. So that's the front load right there. So it's going to take a little while before we actually start to see the various precincts, counties, and all that start to file in.
Bet.
Please.
Low Roller Scratcher says, how is Meet Kevin in the election? He just did whatever you needed to do to get in the election. There's 46 candidates. So I don't know what the requirements were. I don't know if it was you had to get a certain number of signatures, perhaps. But 46 different candidates are in this election to replace Newsom. Larry Elder, unsurprisingly, is leading among those candidates. I believe Governor Newsom was telling people, if I remember right, he was suggesting that that people who vote for no recall don't even vote for the second question. Our viewer Santino thinks the whole election was a waste of money. Matt92 Machine says, who didn't see this coming? Oh, more votes just came in, guys. 55% of the vote is in now. Wow. Estimated 55% in. I'm surprised. I mean, I would think the networks are going to call it very soon. It's clear to me that no is going to win. I would expect any moment now for the networks to start calling it, because you already have over 7 million votes in. That's more than half the number of people who voted in the 2018 governor election. This is not some small percentage of votes. About 12.5 million.
Again, caution to that. 8.7 million voters returned their ballots before September 14th out of possible 22.3 million. Does that mean all 22 million are going to vote? Who knows? That's the question. So is it better than half? 8.7, the last I looked, is not equal to half the vote.
I mean, just a huge lead for no. Hang on one moment. Newsom will be making a statement shortly in Sacramento. That's from Dan Merica. I'm guessing Newsom will declare victory very shortly. I wonder if we'll hear from Larry Elder. Breaking news. Decision Desk HQ now projects Gavin Newsom will be retained as governor of California. This is the election news outlet Decision Desk HQ. They called their race 7 minutes ago. So they are projecting it as well. Decision Desk HQ projects Gavin Newsom will be retained as governor of California.
Well, Decision Desk, if you recall, from back in 2020, after we figured out how they routed the counting in that, not here stateside, but obviously Decision Desk HQ is somewhere in the middle from where all the votes are tallied, run through the Secretary of State's office, run through Seidel, and counted in Germany or wherever the heck these things were counted back in 2020. Don't know if the various states do something similar, but somewhere in the middle of that chain of communications does feed through Decision Desk HQ, if you recall. Does that make it official? No, I would say not. Again, highlighting this simple fact, back even out of the rag San Francisco Chronicle, stating that who actually voted before Election Day, 8.7 million voters, and we haven't even crested that yet. So that means, to me, based on what we're hearing and seeing, that they barely have begun to count the votes out of the various precincts, the roll up of the counties, up to the Secretary of State, any of that stuff. They're merely getting through whatever they have shoved through by way of mail-in ballots. So I'm sure that the Mockingbird media will be happy to try and throw people off, discredit the rest of the folks in that who have voted, just like they have done in the past, just like what we saw Fox News do back on November 3rd. And of course, this is all meant to castigate folks who voted in that and say, well, your vote didn't really matter because, oh, if we front load the thing with a bunch of mail in ballots, then it's going to carry the thing and we'll just do some exit polls per CNN and all of our good old boys in the media and let that hold the water. So, again, we'll have to see here. Maybe a short broadcast tonight. Again, I doubt we'll probably see the official results here tonight. I'm sure we'll see the Mockingbird media probably try and call this thing early. We'll have to see. That being said, California recall results. Let me refresh this one more time here. Yeah, still sitting at about 69.9% no of 5.3 million votes cast. Again, that's shy of the 8 million in that was already highlighted there. 42% of turnout in 2018. I'm curious as to why they didn't bother to update that to 2020. I can't imagine that they don't have those figures. But obviously 2018 being a midterm, obviously we don't get quite the numbers net during midterms that we do during presidential elections. So perhaps they have done that to make it look more favorable. I don't know.
Look, Ryan Matsumoto says Riverside County results. Probably primary mail-in votes. 54 keep Newsom, 45 renew Newsom. I had Newsom's benchmark at 11 minus 12.48 percentage points here for the initial mail ballots, so this would be consistent with a roughly 21-point victory for him statewide. .538 says the latest batch of preliminary exit polling says that 55% of voters approved of the way Newsom is handling his job and 42% disapprove. That's a good position to be in when facing a recall that's in many ways a giant approval poll. When Gray Davis was recalled California governor in 2003, his approval rating was under 30%. Chris J. says, that's my home county. I think he's talking about Riverside. Let's go back to the results. I don't think we've gotten any more results since I last checked. I don't know that CNN has called it yet. No, CNN, I have not heard of any. An elections analyst, Dave Wasserman, has called it. Decision Desk HQ, the election news site, has called it. But no. None of the major outlets have called it yet. Give me a shout at Lookner on Twitter. Thank you so much to Iron Man Today. Iron Man Today is not happy with this result. Thank you for your support, Iron Man Today. I appreciate it. One of our viewers said, Hedge Enemy says, Dave Wasserman said he's going to bed, but I'll bet he's still secretly watching. Now, I don't have an, see, I don't know, like, this is a lot of votes in right now. I mean, this is just 34 minutes after the polls close, and we already have, 58% of the vote in. So, but I don't know how much of this is day of vote, how much of it is, most to all of it would be mail-in vote. Nan B says Kevin Falconer. I don't know how to pronounce that. Falconer is speaking. He is one of the people running against Newsom. Yeah, there's a lot of voting in right. See, Sumya, who's with the LA Times, says it's only 8:33 and 57% of the count is already in. Feels like this mail-in voting shift is going to change election night reporting in California forever. Well, every registered voter in California got sent a ballot in mid-August. So a lot of people voted early by mail, and that's why so many votes, way more than usual, are being counted so fast in California, because so many of them were early mail-in votes. 60% now in. 60% now in. Some more votes came in. It's still it's a 67.7 to 32.3 lead for no. About almost 8 million votes are in. In 2018, in the governor election, 12.5 million people voted. So we're getting close to like having 2/3 of the expected vote in, and it's such a big lead for no. These numbers, Larry Elder, 42%, the most among the replacement candidates, but it's looking like that will not matter. Thank you, Coastal Shark. Coastal Shark from Canada says, I am calling it right now as a major news network. Larry Elder has won the election. That's from Coastal Shark. So, well, Larry Elder looks like he's going to win the replacement vote, but it looks like no is going to win for the recall. Now, Rob McMillan says these results that are in so far are mostly from mail-in ballots, in-person totals not in yet. He is a reporter for ABC7, which I think is in LA.
What have been saying?
Yes. So it should get a little closer when the in-person votes come in. Matthew Keys says California GOP candidate Kevin Faulconer has conceded. Yeah, so I assume I didn't hear what he said. He might have just conceded to Elder, because Faulconer has 9.8% of the vote here. I don't know of any site that has more updated info than the CNN site is. They have 60% in. New York Times has 58% in. Decision Desk HQ has 59% in. Oh, all these sites are pretty close. But CNN has been the fastest one. Michael B., our viewer, says, does anyone really think it would turn out different? Bulletproof Gal says, you're forgetting in 2018 they had to go to the polls to vote. They didn't all get mail-in votes. The number will be higher. That's an interesting point. However, somebody might argue that the recall election, it might have been like at a weird time and there wasn't as much interest in it. I don't know how the turnout will be compared to 2018. But it's a fair point that maybe it was. I don't believe it was the case that everybody was sent a mail-in ballot in 2018. So a fair point by Bulletproof Gal. Maria says.
So per the figures are showing here, they're only showing 7.4 million votes cast so far. And of course, the mail-in was 8.7, so we still got about another 1.3 million to go before we even get over the hurdle of mail-in ballots net that have come in. And of course, as I mentioned in the article before, that if the ballots in that were Nope, I thought I was getting something here. Yeah, so now you're saying ABC and CNN are projecting no recall. But again, it's early. Again, 1.3 million votes to get over the initial mail-in hump. Of course, if this thing drags out, if anybody has postmarked their ballots today, they still have up to 38 days before everything gets certified.
In office. So CBS, ABC, and CNN all just called the race.
Ridiculous.
I'm going to call it here too. I mean, it was obvious to me. NBC as well. NBC has called it too. Alex Seitzwald says NBC projects California Governor Gavin Newsom succeeds in defeating recall. So NBC, CBS.
All right, that's about enough of that business. So at the end of the day, networks, of course, as to be expected. We thought that they would probably pull the same shenanigans as they did in the past. It looks like they're going to do the same, just like Fox News did. Again, if you look at what calmatters.org is highlighting here, we haven't even gotten over the initial 8.7 million hump that is in the old Mockingbird media site. Return ballots before September 14th. So those are still being counted, yet to hit the ones that have even hit the actual polling stations, which that's representative of about another 16 million, 14 million rather, somewhere in there. Now, does that necessarily mean it's going to be 100% for Republicans or no? I don't think so, but who knows what the split is. And of course, if it follows the trends of what we just saw in 2020, of course, all the Dems like to do their mail-in voting early, often, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, we'll have to see. East Tennessee Patriot says, yeah, this guy's getting on my nerves. I would agree. But nonetheless, he's pulling information as well. So, nonetheless, it is what it is. I'm sure we're not going to get the results tonight. The networks call it again, as we pretty well expected. Do one final swing through here. Looks like about 5 million to the no so far, 68.2% of the vote. That's out of San Francisco Chronicle, about 2.3 million to the yes. And it looks like, again, nothing is updated throughout any of these counties yet. I would like to find a site, aside from Mockingbird media sites that are in the know, that actually have actual vote counts in that by county. But it doesn't look like we're going to get from point A to B tonight, are we? So, chances are we'll have to wait till morning, see if anything changes. But as for now, the networks are calling it in favor. Of course, if you remember right, I just covered the fact that Kamala was out there campaigning. Anybody get any articles as to how many people actually showed up to any of their stops and that while she campaigned for him? I can't imagine more than about 5 people would have showed up. Ridiculous. And then, of course, I think we found out that Soros piped in about $1 million net into the campaign coffers as well. And of course, Biden in recent days, we can't afford to have another Trump now, can we? You know, it's like saying, oh, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. It's the same BS tribe and that he kicked out back in 2020. So, all right, maybe one more swing through here. We'll see what he's got to say, and then we'll close out.
Let's go back to the vote total. 61% in. So you would expect it to get a bit closer. Nate Cohn thinks it's going to get roughly 5% closer when the day of votes come in. But yeah, it's a sizable win for the no recall and for Governor Newsom. Thank you, Coastal Shark, for your support. I appreciate Coastal Shark. Hey, a quick thanks to our moderators. We have been busy all night. Linda Belk is moderating. Thank you so much, Linda. Really appreciate it. We have
let's see here. Any updates? Nope, doesn't appear to be. Seems to me like the counting has stopped for whatever reason. No updates in the last little bit out of San Francisco Chronicle or Cal matters.org. So it makes you wonder if they have just gotten through the mailbag of votes and have stopped. Stuck on our number here.
Winning among the replacement candidates. Hey, thanks Arizona Jumper for shouting out the mods. Thank you Arizona Jumper for your support. Thank you for your kind words, Nico Christian Wallenberg. Yeah, Newsom is supposed to speak sometime soon. I don't know if I'll be able to show Newsom. It depends on if he shows his own. I can't steal a news network's feed, but we'll see if Newsom himself, if he broadcasts it, then I can show it. Mike W. says, why is the California Secretary of State's website so much slower than these other sites? I don't know, but a bunch of these different sites all have roughly the same. New York Times, 59% in. Decision Desk HQ, 60% in. CNN, 61% in. So it's not just one outlet. I don't know why the state site is behind.
One final swing, and I think we'll call it a night here. Again, still sitting on a number here, 5.2 million, 67% no, 2.4 million to the yes side, 32% in that regard. Again, out of San Francisco Chronicle. And we'll refresh this maybe one more time here. Yep, still sitting on a number. We kicked up an extra 300,000, so the Machines are clicking away at 7.717 million, 60% of the turnout in 2018. And of course, they have yet to match the threshold, supposedly, of this 8.7 million voters returned their ballots before September 14th. So they still got about a million to go before they even get through all the mail in ballots. Again, it's going to be interesting to see. But again, the network's having called its typical shenanigans and that as usual. So again, we'll probably call it an evening here tonight. We'll check back again tomorrow. So that being said, appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll kick this off again tomorrow. See if anything has changed, but I think what it boils down to is we need election integrity laws, and we're going to have to get rid of the machines. I don't think we're going to get different results by beating our heads against the wall using the same broken system. And until we do, this is what we can expect. So, that being said, signing off for tonight. We'll catch you guys here tomorrow.